Welcome back to the Dogs of Ancient Egypt, part 49. Today we are going to sadly not look, but talk about a piece depicting a dog feeding scene. This is number 501. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo. The photo behind me is something similar that we will talk about. So I'm very glad to be kind of towards the tail end of the over 500 images that I have, but sadly the reason that this piece is at the very end of my corpus is that there is no concrete date for this piece, and thus kind of gets put into the unknown section that I have kind of at the end of my corpus. We do know that this piece is in the Cairo Museum, and we know generally what it looks like based on the references that I have found comparing it to other pieces like the one behind me, but we don't actually have an exact photo, so hey, if you're at the Cairo Museum, let me know. Let's see if we can try to find a picture of this. So we know that this is a fragmented figurine made of faience, and that it is probably a man holding a dog's face up to his face with his own hands, and he is thus feeding the dog with his mouth, which you can see in this image from the Old Kingdom. And this is a separate part of one of them in my corpus, so if you want to know more about this specific piece, I can tell you. But this is a very unique scene which shows a man feeding a dog, and there's been kind of back and forth about if that is actually what it is depicting, but for the most part is that it is believed that this is the weaning of a young dog by teaching the dog how to lap up milk by holding milk in your mouth, which I find super gross, but hey, maybe they needed that. Maybe the dogs needed to learn to wean because they needed to learn how to lap up milk themselves. If you want me to talk about this particular piece, request number 174 in the comments, but we do actually have a lot of different images of this act that are coming mostly from the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom, which we know this one is pretty set date into the Old Kingdom because it's found in Giza. The piece that we're actually talking about in this video does not have any provenance. We don't know where it was exactly found, and we don't know its date. But because it is depicting a scene that is more commonly depicted in the Old Kingdom than the Middle Kingdom, we can at least sort of give it that range because we're just going to assume that this was a common practice and this was something that was obviously made into small little figurines that were placed in tombs and also drawn on tomb walls. You'll also hear it coming from the tomb of Kegmemi, which I'm going to do a separate video on that one as well because I saw that one in person, which was really cool. Now, I love dogs. I think this is kind of strange, but remember, dogs are not just pets in ancient Egypt. These are working animals. And so the kind of weaning process would be especially important because you needed to be able to train the dogs to do whatever tasks that they are trained to perform. Now, why are there so many small figurines and images on tomb walls of this? It's completely unclear, but a lot of these just like agricultural practices are depicted on tomb walls because it was necessary for the ancient Egyptians in their afterlife, because their afterlife is exactly like real life and they still had to do these things. They still had to work. And so if they needed hunting dogs, they needed to eventually train hunting puppies to become hunting dogs. And this is kind of one of the steps of the process. So let me know if you have any questions and we'll get to some more ancient Egyptian dogs very soon.